Mom chose my stepsister over me, and demanded my college fund that my deceased grandma left me. She threatened to kick me out on my 18th birthday. Well, let go. I came into this world during what you might call the worst possible timing. My parents' marriage was already hanging by a thread, and my arrival didn't exactly help matters. I'm Clarissa, and my father Grant wasn't exactly thrilled when Mom told him she was pregnant. You planned this, didn't you, Lydia? He shouted during one of their fights. Got pregnant on purpose just to trap me here. I've heard this story so many times from Mom that I can almost see it playing out, even though I wasn't old enough to remember it myself. Mom always said Dad was too carefree, too irresponsible to be a real family man. He'd rather spend his paycheck on whatever caught his fancy than save for our future. Their arguments echoed through our small house for 4 long years after I was born. Sometimes they were about money, sometimes about Dad's late nights out, sometimes about me. It seemed like everything was a trigger for another explosive fight. When I turned 5, they finally made it official and got divorced. Dad didn't stick around to see how that worked out. He just vanished. No goodbye, no forwarding address, not a single child support payment. It was like he'd never existed, except for the hole he left in our lives and Mom's growing bitterness. Your father is nothing but a selfish coward, Mom would tell me whenever I asked about him. A real man doesn't abandon his child. She'd get this hard look in her eyes every time his name came up, and eventually I learned to stop asking. The only connection I had left to Dad's side of the family was my grandmother, Marjorie. She and Mom couldn't stand each other. Grandma Marjorie blamed Mom for the failed marriage, saying she'd pushed Dad away with her constant nagging about money and responsibility. Mom, in turn, couldn't even bear to be in the same room as Grandma. When it was time for my visits with Grandma, Mom would drive me to her house, practically drop me at the doorstep, and leave without even stepping inside. But once inside, everything changed. Grandma would wrap me in warm hugs and tell me stories about Dad when he was young. She'd run her fingers through my hair and smile softly. You look just like your father, sweetheart, she'd say. You have his eyes, his smile, even that little dimple when you laugh. 3 years passed in a blur of weekend visits to Grandma Marjorie's house, filled with cookies, stories, and the warmth I couldn't find at home. By the time I turned 8, I had settled into a routine. Weekdays with Mom, who was still bitter about Dad, and those precious weekends with Grandma, who never stopped hoping he'd return. But everything changed one rainy Tuesday in October. Mom got a call that made her face turn pale. Get your coat, Clarissa, she said, her voice unusually quiet. Grandma Marjorie wants to see us both. It's important. The drive to Grandma's house was different this time. Usually, Mom would just drop me off and speed away. But today, she parked the car and actually walked with me to the door. Something was wrong. I could feel it in the heavy silence between us. Grandma looked smaller somehow, lying in her bed with papers scattered around her. Her usually perfectly styled silver hair was messy, and her face had a grayish tinge that scared me. But she smiled when she saw us, reaching out her thin hands. Lydia, Clarissa, thank you for coming, she said, her voice weaker than I'd ever heard it. Please sit down, both of you. Mom actually sat without argument, which was when I knew this was really serious. Grandma's lawyer, Mr. Caldwell, was there too, standing quietly in the corner like a somber statue. I need to discuss something important, Grandma said, looking first at me, then at Mom. I'm not well, and I need to make sure everything is properly arranged. She paused to catch her breath. My house and part of my savings will go to your Aunt Meredith, Clarissa. But I've set up something special for you. I remember playing with the hem of my sweater, not really understanding. Adult conversations about arrangements and papers always bored me. But I knew I was supposed to pay attention. I'm creating an educational fund for Clarissa, Grandma continued, her voice growing stronger as she spoke about her plans. It will cover her college expenses when she turns 18. Mr. Caldwell here will manage it until then. Mom's posture changed at those words. She sat up straighter, her eyes widening slightly. I noticed her hands, usually fidgety with anxiety, grow still in her lap. The money can only be accessed for educational purposes, and Clarissa will have full control of it when she turns 18, Mr. Caldwell added, stepping forward with some papers. Mrs. Marjorie has been very specific about these terms. I swung my legs back and forth, more interested in the wallpaper pattern than the discussion. College felt like another lifetime. I was more worried about my spelling test and whether Emily Harlow would invite me to her birthday party. "Everything is arranged, Lydia," Grandma said, reaching for Mom's hand. For once, Mom didn't pull away. "I want to make sure my granddaughter has opportunities, regardless of everything else." A few weeks later, Grandma Marjorie passed away. The funeral was small and quiet. I noticed Mom shed a few tears, though she tried to hide them. With Grandma gone, it felt like the last bridge to my father's world had crumbled away. Life moved on. Over the next 2 years, Mom started dating a man named Richard. He seemed nice enough, had a good job at a bank, drove a sleek car, and always brought me small gifts. Mom smiled more when he was around, and I hadn't seen her smile like that in years. Then came the big news. Mom and Richard were getting married. I was 10, and the idea of a complete family again made my heart race. But there was more. Richard had a daughter my age named Camille. I remember jumping up and down, thrilled at the thought of finally having a sister. The day they moved in, I decorated our shared room with welcome signs and laid out some of my favorite books and toys. Camille walked in, took one look around, and asked her dad if she could have her own room instead. "I don't want to share with her," she said, not even lowering her voice. "She's not really my sister." That was just the beginning. Camille quickly staked her claim on Mom's attention. She curled up next to her on the couch during movie nights, pushing me aside. She started calling Mom Mommy within the first week, and Mom's face lit up every time she did. "Mom, want to see my art project?" I'd ask, holding up a drawing. "In a minute, honey," she'd reply. But that minute never came, because Camille was already showing her homework. When I finally broke down and told Mom how I felt, her response cut deep. "Don't be selfish, Clarissa. Camille lost her mother when she was very young. She needs extra attention and a woman's love. You should understand that." But what about my love? I wanted to scream. Instead, I just nodded and retreated. The changes happened gradually, but looking back I can see how each small moment added up. Shopping trips where Camille got designer jeans and I got discount outlet clothes. Mom's justification. Camille needs to maintain a certain appearance at her new school. Then came the biggest blow. Camille was enrolled at Hawthorne Academy, the elite prep school across town. "What about me?" asked one night. "Can I go to Hawthorne too?" Mom and Richard exchanged a look I hated. "Honey, you're doing fine at Lincoln Public. Camille has different needs. She's really gifted, you know." By 15, I stopped trying to compete for Mom's attention. I focused on my own goals at Lincoln Public. I joined the debate team, competed in science fairs, and earned straight A's. My teachers praised me constantly. But at home, dinner conversations revolved around Camille's tennis tournaments, her Model UN conferences, her brilliance. Senior year I applied to colleges. I was thrilled to earn a full scholarship to State University. My guidance counselor even reminded me that I still had my grandmother's fund. "You could go anywhere you want, Clarissa," she said. But I had other plans. If the scholarship covered tuition, I could save Grandma's fund for something else, like a down payment on a home. 2 weeks before my 18th birthday, Mom called a family meeting. Richard sat on the couch, Camille beside him. "I got into Yale," Camille announced proudly. "That's wonderful," I said, smiling politely. Then Mom leaned forward. "We were hoping, Clarissa, since you have your grandmother's college fund, you might be willing to share it with Camille. Yale is expensive." I stared at her. "Share my college fund? The one Grandma left for me?" "You have a full scholarship," Camille said. "You don't even need it." Mom added softly. "We're family. Family helps each other." The word came out before I could stop it. "No. No." Mom's voice took on that sharp edge I knew too well. I mean no, I said firmly. This money was left to me by Grandma Marjorie. It's mine, and I'm going to use it for my future. Richard's face turned red. Do you hear how selfish she sounds, Lydia? This is exactly what I've been saying for years. I let out a bitter laugh. Selfish. That's rich, coming from you. You've given Camille everything while treating me like I'm invisible. And by the way, if she's as brilliant as you claim, why didn't she earn a scholarship like I did? Camille's face crumpled. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she bolted upstairs, slamming her bedroom door so hard the walls shook. How dare you? Mom's voice was quiet but dangerous. How dare you be so cruel? Cruel. I shot back, my hands shaking. You're trying to take away my college fund. I'm defending myself. Mom stood, her face hard as stone. Then let me make this very clear. You have 2 weeks until your birthday to change your mind. If you don't agree to share that money with your sister, you can find somewhere else to live. The floor seemed to tilt under my feet. What? You're kicking me out? This is my home too. No, Clarissa, she said coldly. This house is in my name. You'll be 18, an adult. I won't be legally obligated to support you anymore. I can't believe this, I whispered. You're choosing her over me again. You're choosing money over family. Family, Richard snapped. Don't talk to us about family. You've always been jealous of Camille. I laughed bitterly. Jealous of what? Of watching you spoil her while I got scraps. Of being ignored in my own house. If that's family, you can keep it. 2 weeks, Clarissa, Mom said. Think carefully about your choice. The next 3 days were like living in a ghost town. Only I was the ghost. At breakfast, no one spoke to me. At dinner, my questions were met with silence. Camille acted like I didn't exist. Mom and Richard treated me like some unwelcome guest who had overstayed her visit. I ate meals in my room, spent hours at the library, and tried to stay invisible. But every night I could hear them in the living room, talking, laughing, watching TV together. A happy family of 3 with no room for me. Finally, I called Mr. Caldwell, Grandma's lawyer. My hands were shaking as I dialed, but his warm voice steadied me. Clarissa, I was just thinking about you. Your 18th birthday is coming soon. Yes, Mr. Caldwell. That's why I'm calling. I took a deep breath and told him everything. The demand for money, the ultimatum, all of it. He listened quietly, then cleared his throat. Those funds are legally yours the moment you turn 18. Your grandmother was very specific about that. And frankly, I believe she suspected something like this might happen. What do you mean? Let's just say she knew your father's ex-wife very well. He paused. Now, about your living situation, here's my advice. Pick your college first, preferably one in a different city. Then secure an apartment nearby. I'll handle the paperwork. You won't be able to access the funds until your birthday, but we can prepare everything in advance. That afternoon, I searched for apartments near State University, where I'd already been accepted with a full scholarship. By evening, I found a small studio just 10 minutes from campus. The landlord, Mrs. Chen, agreed to hold it for me with a promise of payment on my birthday. For the next week, I quietly packed my life into boxes, one at a time after everyone was asleep. Books, clothes, photos. My world condensed into cardboard. On the morning of my 18th birthday, Mom cornered me in the kitchen. Well, she asked, arms crossed. Have you made your decision? I looked her in the eye and felt strangely calm. Yes. The answer is still no. Then you know what that means, she said, her voice hard. I want you out of this house today. Okay, I said simply. My calmness must have startled her. I think she expected begging, maybe tears. Instead, I carried my pre-packed boxes outside and called the taxi I'd scheduled the night before. 20 minutes later, I was turning the key in the lock of my new apartment. The first thing I did was call Mr. Caldwell. By noon, the paperwork was ready. At 1 o'clock, I officially had access to my grandmother's fund. I paid my first month's rent and security deposit to Mrs. Chen that afternoon. Then I walked to a local coffee shop where I'd applied for a job earlier. The manager, Miles, had already promised me a summer position. My apartment was tiny, just a studio with a kitchenette, but it was mine. That night, I sat on my air mattress eating takeout and watching the sunset through my single window. And I felt it for the first time in my life: freedom. 2 weeks later, during my break at the coffee shop, my phone buzzed with notifications. Friends from high school were messaging me. "Have you seen your mom's post? Are you okay?" With shaking hands, I pulled it up. "My daughter has broken our hearts," Mom had written. "After everything we've done for her, she selfishly refused to help her sister get a college education. Instead, she's hoarding money from her grandmother while her sister's dreams are put on hold. I never thought I'd raise such a heartless child." The comments below were worse. Relatives I barely knew chimed in. "How could she be so ungrateful? Family should come first. What a spoiled brat." I sat there, my coffee growing cold as anger burned inside me. Then something snapped. If Mom wanted to air dirty laundry online, fine. Let's tell the whole story. I opened my laptop and started typing. "Since my mother has chosen to make our private matters public, here is my side. Yes, I refused to give my stepsister the college fund my grandmother left for me. What my mother failed to mention is that she gave me an ultimatum: either surrender my inheritance or be kicked out of the house on my 18th birthday. She followed through. I was forced to move out because I wouldn't hand over money that legally belonged to me. I hit post and went back to work. By the time my shift ended, the response was overwhelming. Former teachers, neighbors, even some of Mom's old friends left comments of support. People admitted they'd noticed the favoritism for years but never spoke up. That evening, Mom called. Her voice was full of venom. "How dare you? Do you know how humiliating this is? Half my friends are questioning my parenting." "Maybe they should," I said calmly. "You kicked your daughter out for not giving away her inheritance. What kind of parent does that?" "I did everything for you," she snapped. "No, Mom. You did everything for Camille. And that's fine, she's your daughter now. But I'm done. Goodbye." I hung up and blocked her number. Then I blocked Richard and Camille too. It was surprisingly easy, like cutting away dead weight I'd carried for years. Now, I'm in my first semester at State University, studying business management. My little studio feels more like home every day. On my desk sits a framed picture of Grandma Marjorie. Sometimes I swear she's smiling at me with pride. She knew I'd need that fund, not just for school but for freedom. She gave me the means to choose my own path. And I'll never forget that.